Renee, where are you?
I am in the Bahamas, Magic. It is
I'm trying to match.
stunning.
I'm trying to match your background, but your background is real. My background is a fake background. Your background is like, my goodness, what's going
It's
on there?
live. It doesn't get more live than this. Yes.
The weather
Yes.
is beautiful, I see, and you seem to be extremely relaxed. How is it going?
Yes. It's beautiful. I'm here with, I want to give a shout out to my amazing client, SD3IT, and Dave and Sarah Dimlick, as well as Debbie Keeger. And the team here, we have almost, I want to say, 20 people, or a
Okay,
little bit more. It's all of the employees at SD3IT, or the bulk of them, and their significant others. It's their reward trip from last year. They are a value added reseller primarily for the federal government, and they've been in business for 10 years. They focus really a lot on cybersecurity solutions across multiple hardware and software platforms, because the government has a lot of infrastructure that's aged, and also they've got different things that they've bought throughout the years. So anyway, SD3IT has been serving the customers for 10 years. This is the first time that they take a reward trip. They've always been working very hard, and a little bit in line with the law of timing. It's their 10th anniversary. They've also crossed a threshold from a revenue standpoint. They've crossed a threshold from a number of employee standpoint, and Dave and Sarah and the team. Dave and Sarah have been there from the start, and of course here we have Phil and Ramon, who have been with them from the beginning. But just a wonderful set of people who really have been serving the U.S. nationwide, or the country, and keeping our country safe from cyber attacks. And it's a wonderful mission, and maybe it took them a little too long to celebrate, but that's why we want to talk about the law of timing. We're going to talk about it today from a leadership point of view, but also I think it applies to markets. It applies to vacation time. It applies to a lot of things. How are you?
I think
How are you doing?
I, I'm doing extremely well, Renee, and it's funny that you talk about the cybersecurity, because I was at this event in Warsaw 2 days ago.
I
Well, 2 days,
saw.
yes, on
Yeah.
Tuesday. Really, really interesting. I was actually really positively surprised. I don't remember the last time I've been at the event when the deputy prime minister of the country was present on the
Wow.
stage and talking. But obviously, cybersecurity seems to be such an important topic nowadays, especially in
Mhm.
Poland, which is being attacked, by the cyber by the
Really?
cyber. Yeah, yeah. They
Mhm.
said this, the amount of cyber attacks on our infrastructure,
Mhm.
on our critical infrastructure, and generally on everything that is going on, has significantly increased. They had to boost the resources, they had to boost the knowledge, and they obviously collaborate very closely with NATO and with European Union, just to make sure
Mhm.
that there's this exchange of ideas between the countries. They collaborate very closely with Ukraine,
Mhm.
uh, and I didn't know there was a pretty, because we not only had the deputy prime minister on the stage, but there was also the chief of the police cybersecurity department, and he
Huh.
was talking. They were talking about how they helped Ukraine to
Mhm.
deploy Starlink, for example. I wasn't aware of the fact that
Oh.
Poland was really the operating. It was like Elon Musk delivered them,
Right.
but somebody
Mhm.
had to deploy and operate that, and
Mhm.
support that and protect that. And it looks like Poland is pretty good, pretty well established now as an expert or a hero in
Wow.
the cybersecurity world. I didn't know about all
I
of
love
this,
that.
and it was
Yeah.
very interesting. and there was a lot of discussion about artificial intelligence. I think it's a topic for any presentation. So
Yeah.
I think going forward, Renee, in our lives, we need to start always like AI is important or something like that. I don't know. We need to figure out.
Yeah. AI is in everything you do. Right.
But it was amazing actually. When Palo Alto Networks was presenting the platformization concept and how are they planning to use artificial intelligence in different parts of their product portfolio and what they expect artificial intelligence to do. We might have, I might have, or we might have another discussion on that one day, because it's a very, very interesting topic. I will for sure talk about this at the SMB event in Sonoma. I think
Yes.
you're coming, right? I
I
think you're
am,
planning to come.
yes. Yes. I'm moving around my doctor's appointments, and I am going to be there even if it's just for the one day and then leave, but I definitely would not miss it.
Okay. So if anybody wants to join the event, it's going to be 15th and 16th of May. SMB, leaders from around United States and some of the global people are going to show up as well. It's going to be an interesting discussion for 2 days about what ultimately helps to run the business with SMB customers, how we can support them better, how we can navigate the changes that they are going through. Okay, we wanted to talk today about the law of timing, the perfect timing, mastering the art of when. This is not my
Yeah.
strong point, Rena, and we'll talk about this, but I don't think I'm particularly excelling in being at the right moment in the right time. So here is what the law is what the law says. Effective leaders must understand the importance of timing in decision making. You need to be at the right moment, because the success of action, you're going to be more successful if you do it at the right moment in time. So it's important to analyze the situation, anticipate the consequences, and really understand the environment, talk to the stakeholders, but you cannot be too early and you cannot be too late. I'm not sure I'm good at that, Renee.
Yeah, I do think this is one of the most difficult laws for leaders in general. Um, for me, it's difficult probably for very different reasons that it is for you. I think we'll get into that a little bit. But I also want to remind people it's an important law, not just when you're making a decision on a product or a business investment, but it's really the decision to follow versus lead, right? As leaders, we always want to be, again, the bias for action, right? Taking an action and leading. But sometimes when you're in a room of a bunch of leaders, sometimes you need to know, many times, you also need to know when you should be following someone else. And I think you and I, as we were chatting earlier, struggle with this law for different reasons. We are very good, I would say, at making timely decisions on the things that we are fully accountable for, right? If it's our own teams, our own business, is it, um, our family life? But it's not always easy to navigate when you have to negotiate timing in a room with other type A personalities, other leaders who have their own agendas or objectives. So I think this is going to be very interesting. I don't know if you have anybody on the live magic that you can see, but hopefully, if there are people out there listening, if you can comment, let us know you're here. We love it when you add your feedback. And the law of timing, I think it's an interesting topic for us to really hear from some of you out there. It's a good time to comment.
It's a good time to speak up. there,
Yes.
there, are, there are a few people. There's like 8 people on the line that I see. Uh, to be honest, Renee, it's my big struggle with the law of timing is I believe that many times I'm not patient enough, okay, and many people have pointed this to me that I'm not patient enough with my decisions. Many times I see the solution, I really like the solution, I
Mhm.
think it's a perfect solution. I have discussed the solution with enough people that I feel like I have tested the solution also with the versus various opinions. But I think the one thing that, and maybe this is something that people should be paying a lot of attention to, there's also this element of you might have the right concept. Everything could be perfectly, kind of a prepared, but you might be a little bit too early with the execution plan.
Or
Maybe
too
it
late.
requires a little bit more of the planning of how to execute, or maybe it requires a little bit more of a waiting for the right moment to press the button and go. Okay, I have a tendency, because I'm very biased for action, so I have a tendency typically to move forward very fast and just,
Mhm.
like take an action. And sometimes I feel like uh, the decisions that I've made in the past, they were a little bit too early from the timing perspective. I'm going to give you an example. So there are a couple of projects that I pushed forward because I knew they are great, and I just felt like the company shouldn't wait, and they struggled. They had to be stopped, put on the back burner, and then a year later, or a year and a half later, 2 years later, everybody would be like, "Oh, we need to do something like that," and I would be like, "Oh my goodness!" Either I didn't explain myself right,
Uh-huh.
or the whole market, the trend, the concept was too early. And I always quote. I think there's this quote by one of the famous VC investors. He said, "Am I too early, or am I simply wrong? You always have to wonder." And I think and I think many times I was simply too early with some of the projects that I would push, and I had to re-establish, re-put, re-execute them later, or which obviously you lose a little bit of a freshness, and you
Mhm.
lose a little bit of the engagement from the people that are in the game with you together. So that's my problem with the law of timing.
I'll tell you my problem in a second. But as you were talking, I was reminded of an article that I read this week. Actually, Dave Dimlick sent it to me. It was an article in Forbes. It was an interview of Steve Jobs, a number of, many years ago, of course, before he passed, but even way before. And I think he was one of those leaders that had a really good sense for the law of timing. Maybe he would tell you that he released some products or some concepts too early. But in this article in Forbes magazine, and what I'll do is I'll post it on the LinkedIn event when we're done. But what he was talking about was really um, when they were creating the graphical user interface for the Apple OS. And technologists, even though they're enemies in some occasions because they're competing, they're also collaborators at the end. And so he had gone to, I think it was IBM Park, and there were multiple engineers from different companies in Silicon Valley, and they were exchanging these ideas. And he had hired a lot of people from another technology company that was very conservative. So at the time, he had hired a lot of young engineers from Hewlett Packard. Still, Bill and Dave were around, right? But engineers from Hewlett Packard that he hired at the time were usually very risk averse, and they did not want to execute his vision on the graphical user interface, and they waited too late, right? So he actually got rid of those engineers and went with his own different engineering team, and ended up with the I whatever the first Apple Amiga or whatever the first user interface was that he wanted. But he's one futurist or technologist or visionary that I would say is a good example of how he's able to anticipate the trends from a tech perspective, and particularly from a consumer, from from the way consumers will interact with the products, right? And again, this law of timing, we're talking about leadership styles, but also leading in the market is a way, and leading in product solutions is important when you talk about this law. Um, but anyway, I wanted to share those thoughts, and I'll post the article there. Um, if you go, I love the little acronym you came up with, Magic. Can we go
Oh
to
yeah.
that, and I can tell you the part that I think I'm very bad at. So let's go there. Yes.
Yeah, this is the art of when, and we always try to give you like a little acronyms to remember, so you can basically use that in the future in your. Well, we want to be practical. Okay, so the art of when uh, can be described of W, which is wait for the right moment, which I'm not good at all. Okay, harness opportunities, which I think I'm really good at because I typically I was able to foresee a lot of kind of a trends and concepts that became way more gen, you know way more accepted by the general public later on.
Mhm.
Engage proactively, uh, which I believe I'm good at because I typically call people and discuss with them. I like kind of a checking my ideas with people and discussing with them. And navigate changes is when things go wrong, when you're executing and the market situation will change, and there are some other kind of elements of your plan that are changing. You need to navigate. You need to be adaptable, manage risks, be
Yeah.
adaptable and understand what's going on. So I am really good at HEN. I don't think I'm really good at, and I have a little bit of an anecdote about it later on.
Okay. Okay. Well, so I'm also not great at W, but for different reasons than you are, right? You express that you're impatient and you wait too long. For me, and I think a little bit, I don't think, I know, because I've spent a lot of time really analyzing this about myself, and understanding where it comes from. But culturally, as a Hispanic female, I was raised in an environment where you have a certain amount of or a good healthy amount of deference, or you kind of wait for your elders, or for the person in a higher position or with higher experience to kind of give you a little bit of that permission to either speak or move forward with your ideas, or you just kind of follow their lead because they're the elder. And even though you think you might have a better idea, it would be very disrespectful to step in. Again, in our culture, and so and especially as a woman, if you're a man, the rules are a little bit different as a Hispanic mostly. Um, and, and I think maybe in every culture, but I can tell you about my culture. And so what happens is sometimes I find myself waiting too long, even though I may see that whoever's in that leadership position at the moment or making that decision, it maybe is not the right thing for the collective. But I keep I earlier, when I was younger, I would keep my mouth shut, and I would just kind of follow and see where it went. And that's where I've done a lot of work to understand where my hesitation to lead in those scenarios comes from, so that I can, not lead for the sake of leading, but also not wait too long. So not to act. I generally, I'm also impatient, but I generally um, don't have the problem. I One of the key differences I would say about you and me too is you're much more of a visionary than I am. No, you are. You really can see, you see something way ahead in the future. I don't have that gift, right? I don't see trends in that way. So it's easier for me to not have that itch and that bias for action for things like that because I don't see them yet. Whereas you see them way ahead of time. And so you want to get there first, and be that, that first, that, what is it, that leader advantage. And
First
I
mover
don't.
advantage.
Yeah, the first mover advantage, correct. So I think honestly what I've tried to do over the years, other than understand myself, is partner with people like you, right? So that I can get that balance, right? And that's where
This is a
it
very
helps.
smart recommendation, Renee, because this is, and this is the here comes my anecdote. Like currently, I had this little surgery a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
It's exactly 5 weeks ago, I think today. It's exactly five
Okay.
weeks ago,
Mhm.
and and I and the number one problem that I have is I cannot wait for the next step in the recovery process. I just cannot wait. It's like, they gave me like guidelines, like after 2 weeks you can do so much, and after 4 weeks you can do so much, and after 6 weeks you can do so much. So I'm always trying to push a little bit ahead, and then my doctor, my wife, and my physiotherapist are teaming up. So that's your delegation. That in my case, there is an entire, kind of a
Team.
team behind me that is trying to stop me, and kind of a stop. No, 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 no.
Mhm.
Can I do that? No, just it's not yet. Wait for another week. For God's sake,
Mhm.
wait for another week. So I think it's a very very smart, it's a very smart recommendation, Renee, to give to people about delegating or outsourcing. Like you recommended to me. One of those discussions that we had was,
Yeah.
should I go to Vegas for the channel event? And I
Uh-huh.
was, in the middle of like, I'm hurting, my back hurts, and I cannot move very well. But I want to go because I think it's important. And your recommendation was really, really good, because you said, like, you need to outsource this decision to somebody who can make a better judgment than you. And I was outsourcing this decision to my wife. It was one of the best decisions that I've made, because she did listen to me very carefully what I had to say, and I had this vision of me going there and coming back and then taking a surgery. And she said, like, no, stop. You're not gonna go anywhere. You're gonna just wait for a moment. You're gonna take you're gonna go to the hospital and do the right thing for your health. Then you're gonna recover, and then you can travel wherever you want, whatever you need. Everything can wait. You have to do the right timing. And I think your recommendation to outsource maybe some of the decision making that you are not feeling great with is, and that's why maybe you and I are working so well together, because maybe I'm a little bit of a crazy guy pushing for things to move forward, and you are the one that is saying, like, hey, look, just slow down a bit.
Yeah. No, and I think it speaks to the importance of teamwork, right? Not just teamwork, because I think traditionally we think of teamwork in a hierarchical way, right?
Mm.
Instead of teamwork in a more flat type of organization. And when you're in a partnership in terms of your marriage, or when you're in a partnership like you and I are, our teamwork is more. Hold on a second, we're on the same level, so there's no one's the boss of anyone. It's just we can recognize each other's strength and understand how to use it in the benefit of each other and the collective, right? And I think that's important when you have a group of C-suite leaders, right? Or a group of owners or co-owners, where not every one of us is going to be good at everything, and we need to really depend
On
on
the,
other
on the, on the
people,
contrary,
right? Mm-hmm.
on the contrary, Renee, we should know, and we, as leaders, we should acknowledge the fact that we are not good at everything that we do.
Yep.
We should specifically know what are we good at, and where we
Yes.
have our gaps and problems, and what we should be outsourcing, or
Yeah.
how we should be teaming up with others, because outsourcing is maybe not the best word here.
The right
How we
term.
should
Yeah.
team up.
Yeah.
How should we team up with others? And it could be teaming up with your own employees.
Correct.
So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be your peer or your boss. You
Mm-hmm.
could outsource a decision about yourself or your,
Yep.
yeah, you can outsource your decision to somebody that is maybe working for you,
Yeah.
uh, just because you know you might not make the right one. And actually admitting that, I believe, Renee,
Mm-hmm.
admitting that you might make the wrong decision and outsourcing it to an organization, to somebody in your organization, is first of all showing your vulnerability, which I think is super important in building the trust.
Mm-hmm.
You're building a trust because you're offering, people in your organization an opportunity to take an action, and
Mm-hmm.
advise and recommend you something. Obviously, has to be a trust environment.
Right.
And then you're building your people to make the right decisions, and you're also showing them appreciation that you have for them. It's probably worth more than an appreciation in those kind of all hands call when we say like, oh, here's the picture,
Yes.
you've done a great job. The appreciation by, I am going to delegate to you a key part of my responsibilities because I don't believe that I can make a decision. Think about the power, the empowerment that you offer to people by doing that. I think it's just an amazing opportunity here.
Well, and you said something important, right? When there's trust and you know that you have a shared goal, right? And in the example that you gave, right, Margosha is equally invested in your overall health, right? But she wasn't the one in pain. She wasn't the one, maybe feeling the anxiety or the pressure about the Vegas event. So she was in a better, more objective, emotional place to make the best decision that would still get you to the right goal. As you were talking about that, and I'm thinking about it, I was thinking about my consulting company, right? Is and the finances around it. So I'm self-funding the company, and I brought in my CFO, who used to be someone in my team, but is now not just my fractional CFO, but a very trusted advisor because I was in an emotional place, right? Having to provide for my family. I have this money to invest, but as a new business owner, you get all these offers from all these people that want your money, right? From virtual assistants to software to all these things. And I was able to bring in David, and he and I joke a little bit, right? That I asked permission to spend my own money, but I do ask for permission because he's in a much better objective place to say, Renee, this is what's financially best for you, for the company, and for your overall financial goals, right? We both want to see my company be successful, but he's in a much better emotional place to make a decision that's more fact driven. Whereas to me, I get all, oh, this is going to be a great tool, or this is going to, and I could make a mistake and run out of money too early, or my cash flow can get kind of funky. Um, and I think that's one of the best decisions I've made since starting the company is really outsourcing that decision to him because he will know the best timing for spending the money.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, I also want to build on one more topic that you have brought to everybody's attention, which is the cultural differences.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it is absolutely true that you might have a different preferences because of your culture, heritage, you name it, right? And what is even more important, and I had a presentation last Saturday to the students of the MBA here
Oh,
in
that's
Warsaw
right. Mm-hmm.
about the cultural differences, and I think this is a perfect example of There will be culturally people that will have a bias for action versus a bias for, thinking or overthinking ideas. I think some people, like there are nations or cultures that are more prone to overanalyze stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and being super, super, super slow in making a decision, but really, really good in understanding what needs to happen before you make the decision. And there are nations that or cultures that have a tendency to move super fast without maybe paying too much attention to the. I mean, it's a generalism, so I don't want anybody to feel, kind of that I'm making a very general statement, so I don't want anybody to feel hurt or impacted by what I'm saying. But it is true that I mean, Germany or no sein, right? uh, you need to analyze really, or the Japanese culture is extremely known for extreme attention to the details, and moving much
Quality.
slower with the
Mm-hmm.
decision, the quality, looking at the quality. And there are some other cultures that are way more biased towards action or towards creativity and moving forward without looking at the consequences. Polish, me myself being one, right? So I think as an international leader, it's also good to understand different cultures and how they interact with each other, and use it to the advantage of the global organization. Maybe, have a situation when, if you want to move super fast, you will still go back and chat with the organizations or people, or or teams that are taking time to make a decision, just to make sure that you slow a little bit yourself down on this.
It's interesting. My husband is a bit of a philosopher, but he's also holds a doctorate in organizational behavior. And he and I, before I was coming to the Bahamas, he and I were talking about fast moving systems and slow moving systems. And we were talking about it in the context of business, but it also, he reminded me that they exist in nature as well. When you look at our ecosystems and the environments, you have certain types of plants or trees that grow fast, others slow. And everything, if you really start studying biology at that level, um, every the goal of life is it always seeks balance, right? And in that seeking balance, right, you will have fast moving systems and slow moving systems. Balance gets out of whack, like we have a lagoon close, a river across from our house, and sometimes the river stinks, right? But it's because it has an algae bloom, and the algae bloom happens because the water temperature goes too high, and the fast moving systems of the algae start reproducing algae faster than the river can process it, so then you get an imbalance in the ecosystem. And again, that goes to the law of timing, and you see it everywhere. You see it in nature, and you see it in business, and certainly in leadership and in cultures. And it's one of the laws that it's so fascinating. To every law I love, but this one's fascinating because I find, or I'm particularly fascinated by it because of the multiple layers that's in it, right? So even you and I
Oh,
can be bad at the W, but in different ways. Yes.
um, I need to admit that before we decided to cover this law, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I think I'm growing to appreciate it more after this conversation, Renee. I have one more slide that I wanted to share with
Yes.
you.
Mhm. Oh, I love this slide.
From a 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, we covered 19. So we still have two more to go. Just want to let everybody know that uh, we are going to go to 20th and 21st next week and the week after, and then we will most likely come up with another series of the discussions. We have good feedback from you guys, and sometimes even participation. Not today, last week was much better on the volunteering.
Very active.
This week,
Mhm.
maybe I'm not the only one that doesn't like the law of timing, and, and
No.
we're not really happy to listen about to that topic. But we'll keep on covering
Yeah.
those two that are remaining, and then we'll switch to a new to a new set of discussions. So thank you very much for attending and staying with us today. And we'll talk in a week again, Rena, right? When you come back
Yes.
from Bahamas.
Yeah, I won't be in the Bahamas, but we'll talk again.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Speak to you later.
Bye.
Bye.